All right, I think with audio and everything, it is working. I'm just checking and making sure we're good on all platforms, and then we'll get going here in about 10 minutes, a little early today. I'm just not going live yet, Daniel. We're working on it right now. Hello and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. I go by Blind Run on the internet and Matthew in real life. And today we're going to be discussing, of course, the elephant in the room, which is a class action lawsuit against Nvidia for essentially downplaying the importance and relevance of cryptocurrency mining during the last bull run. And this is going to be a big deal because I think that it's going to definitely demonstrate to a lot of people the importance of cryptocurrency in general for the economic well being of everyone involved. And that includes, of course, large manufacturers. And of course, from there, we are going to be talking about Marathon Digital planning on some private note sales to fund buying more Bitcoin as if they didn't have enough already with 20,800 Bitcoin in their holding right now. We also have Bitcoin miner Celsius with Celsius Assets delays their IPO after losing their CEO and auditor. And then we are going to be talking about Nvidia and their expected launches of a potential CPU coming from Nvidia, which is absolutely insane. We're going to have three CPU manufacturers potentially with Nvidia entering the race. That could be a lot of fun. Of course, that might also be why they are apparently downplaying or at least delaying, I should say, Blackwell chips here in the future. We'll talk about that. But, if you're having issues getting GPUs, there is potential to build your own GPU. And we're going to take a look at a project called Fury GPU, where an individual has gone ahead and built their own GPU from scratch. Well, sort of scratch, actually an FPGA, which is relevant for all of you guys because, FPGAs are quite commonly utilized for mining cryptocurrencies. And then we have a new X3D part coming out potentially from AMD, the 5500 X3D. Of course, they just launched their 5800 XT models as well as the 5900 XT. And of course, we have their latest and greatest 9000 series CPUs, which have turned out to be a little bit of a disappointment on the gaming side of things and performance side of things. Might end up playing out in the favor of us cryptocurrency miners due to the efficiency advantages that it currently holds. We're also going to be taking a look at the 4070 GDDR6 edition, which is going to be replacing the GDDR6X edition due to, of course, the reduction in production of the GDDR6X. And the 4080 or 4090D and 4080 Supers are getting up to 48 gigabytes of memory in their models in China, which could be absolutely fantastic on the crypto mining slash large training models for AI. And that will be up for debate. Apparently, Nvidia still wants you to believe that everything is for AI. But as we know, if you guys watch the video from Power Meta and the interview over there, a lot of these AI companies are actually seeing cryptocurrency being done, mined on their systems 80% of the time, while the other 20% of the time is actually about the training models. So I think we're still lying to ourselves a bit with the importance of AI. That's kind of what I'm getting from the markets personally. I think even Nvidia is overselling the AI factor to their board members, etc., and downplaying more and more, of course, the cryptocurrency effect because obviously with the crashes they don't want to be tied to cryptocurrency because it can make their stock more volatile. But the fact is that's just the case. The way they're kind of staving this off has been with their horrible market manipulation on the supply side of their GPUs, and the manipulation on all of that has been insane. We've talked about it before, but if you guys are looking at building test benches for cryptocurrency mining, you want to create your own crypto mining YouTube channel and you want to be able to test efficiencies properly, there are a lot of new options coming out here in the near future with external GPU enclosures that actually make a lot more sense from that perspective as far as being able to pull the entire power of just that system. A lot of them are also coming with HTPC type systems that you can add on to them, which are like low level CPUs or lower performing CPUs like the 5600X or even lower, which can basically power the whole system, act as a test bench for all of your testing. You could load Hive OS on it. I want to show you guys a few of those options. I actually have one custom built over here. I covered it on the channel already, and that is so that I can get real world power numbers from the wall. And I think that's really important. Now, we're also going to be talking about two major leaks via GitHub miner releases, one coming from XM Rig and the other coming from SRB Miner, who both in the past week have dropped new miner updates to their GitHub, which gives us a couple hints on some new cryptocurrencies that you could potentially mine. From there, we're also going to be talking about those cryptocurrencies, and then we are going to be taking a look at CoinDesk's performance update as it pertains to other cryptocurrencies' performance in relation to Bitcoin, and we're going to see what the market looks like there and what people are leaning towards. Of course, CoinDesk isn't going to cover a lot of the shit coins we like to cover over here on this channel, so we need to start getting something set up for that as well, and I think I will be trying to do some more research on that. I just got back from QuakeCon. It's been a very busy summer for me, so thank you everybody for tuning back in. I appreciate each and every single one of you. It really does mean a lot that you guys show up here. We're going to be talking about an important update for the Photonic wallet, which just launched from Radiant, because obviously I have the GOAT token, and that is at goatglyph.com if you want to check out more about that. GPU mintable token on the RxD20 layer 2 system on the Radiant blockchain. And then we will talk politics, but not on YouTube. We'll be talking politics over on Rumble. So when we get to the politics section, we will be shutting off on YouTube and moving over there, because apparently we just have too many sissies over here on YouTube to handle it, and the algorithm hates it. So Rumble it is. If you guys want to head on over there afterwards, we'll be over on Rumble discussing politics as it pertains to cryptocurrency. And boy, do we have some big stuff coming out of Russia and, of course, Trump and Kamala. So let's go ahead and hop into the first topic today. Make sure you hit that like button on any desired platform, or click around and go to all of the platforms that we're streaming on and click like. We are live on Rumble, Locals, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and X, or also known as Twitter. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first article today. Nvidia's crypto mining lawsuit takes a new turn. U.S. Supreme Court to hear the firm's plea. The U.S. Supreme Court is all set to hear Nvidia on an investor lawsuit where the firm is allegedly blamed for misleading information regarding their business during the crypto mining era. Now, for those of you that were following this channel back then, I think, and a lot of the average consumers, one of the big benefits of GPU mining in general was that you had consumer grade hardware available to the public. But as you guys know, Nvidia went backdoor on everybody and started selling the large GPU farms, bypassing, of course, any third-party retailers and screwing us over, just like Bitmain's been doing since their inception. So I'm a little upset about it too. Now, Nvidia is set to face off investors who claim that the firm presented misleading financial data, which led to huge losses. For those who are unaware, back in 2019, a group of investors filed a class action lawsuit against Nvidia, claiming that the firm was responsible for downplaying the importance of revenue stream from the crypto mining boom. Since GPU sales saw a massive surge at the time, Nvidia associated it with the demand from the gaming industry. However, that wasn't the case at all. We all know how devastating the crypto mining hype had on the GPU supply to consumers, but apparently Team Green hid this fact from investors, which is why they now face legal trouble. Now, from Nvidia's perspective, one of the reasons this was done was because of the negative publicity surrounding crypto mining causing the shortages. And I think what they wanted to try to do was basically two things. I think one, they were trying to keep a good PR front so that the gamers would still be purchasing their GPUs for gaming, and they didn't want to lose that market. But two, I think they also didn't want to tie themselves to the volatility of the cryptocurrency market, and thereby, of course, causing their stock to crash when, of course, the inevitable crash of the cryptocurrency market happens. And that's just based off of the 4-year cycle that I think anybody, even Nvidia at this level, is probably fully aware of at this point. So that's probably why. Now, ethically, is that okay? No. But is it kind of understood that they're going to do what's best in their best interest from a PR perspective? I think that, well, yeah, probably. Reuters claims the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to listen to Nvidia on the lawsuit to end the matter. The lawsuit is led by Stockholm, Sweden-based investment management firm Oman J, or Fonder AB, and they demand an unspecified amount of compensation. They claim that with the misleading revenue figures, investors faced losses through Nvidia's inflated stock share pricing. Although the case was dismissed by the U.S. District Court in 2021, it came back to life in August of 2023 through the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, given that the lawsuit claims that Nvidia framed its financial data, it can prove to be a massive legal trouble for the firm, which in recent days has managed to find a spot alongside Apple and Microsoft regarding market capitalization. With the AI hype in play, Nvidia is now a much bigger firm than it was back in the time of the lawsuit filing, so one might say the case would tarnish the firm's reputation among the sight of investors. It will be interesting to see how the lawsuit plays out, given that the U.S. Supreme Court has decided to hear Nvidia's plea here, and we'll keep you updated when we receive more developments. Of course, I'm going to be following this very closely because I think it will impact the future of cryptocurrency mining on the GPU side of things here in the very near future. And I think what is being masked is basically cryptocurrency mining with AI. Everything that I've seen as far as all of my honeypots across Chlor AI and Vast AI, etc., are proving out to show that cryptocurrency is still alive and well on the GPU mining side, and people are mining and doing some hash rate arbitrage that everybody is pretending not to know about. Even the kind of resellers of hash power, Vast AI as well as Chlor AI, are kind of trying to focus on this AI key terminology to boost their PR. But in fact, really what we're just witnessing is a lot of cryptocurrency mining still going on. In the future, though, it will be necessary for AI models that are not currently being trained to have some supplemental income. So I think even if we do get to the point of AI models being trained, globally or ubiquitously, we will still see compensation on the cryptocurrency mining side of things when those AI models are not being trained or individual GPUs within those systems are not being trained. Another thing, of course, here to point out is that there are a lot of failure rates that go on the memory side of things with AI model training, like we discussed last week. Make sure you check out that particular segment on, of course, all the failures that Meta saw across all of their H100s. And when those GPUs do fail, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to repurpose them for cryptocurrency mining because you aren't necessarily needing to load up near as much memory on the crypto mining side as you do on the GPU mining side. So it could be a potential repurpose of these machines in the future as memory modules begin to fail from the AI models. It's something that I would predict here not too far away. Now, Bitcoin miner Marathon Digital plans a $250 million private note sale to fund Bitcoin buying. The notes will pay interest every 6 months and mature September 1st, 2031. Marathon Digital plans to sell $250 million of convertible notes in a private placement to help fund Bitcoin purchases. The miner already holds more than 20,800 Bitcoins, more than twice the level of its nearest peer, Hut 8. Bitcoin miner Marathon Digital said it plans to sell these convertible notes in a private placement to fund purchases of Bitcoin and general corporate purposes. The notes will pay interest every 6 months and mature September 1st, 2031, which actually would be around the timing, in case you guys are curious. 2032 would be technically when we're going through another bull cycle and should be the macro breakout based off of the fees. So if we believe that we are still going to be in a traditional halving cycle for Bitcoin, and that what breaks us out into a macro cycle is fees meeting parity, of course, with the block reward, that should happen sometime in 2032. And when that happens, of course, we should be expecting absolutely astronomical numbers from Bitcoin, as well as removal of volatility due to the power law and all of that. So if you're interested in that, of course, I do talk about it more in my crypto mining e-course on sonofatech.com, which will be taken down soon. I think we're going to be redoing that whole system, but it's still up if you guys want to go check that out. Go do it. And I'm curious as to where we're going to be. Where do you think we'll be in 2032? Do you think we'll be in the $500,000 range for Bitcoin? Do you think we'll be in the $5,000 range for Bitcoin? Or is it all the way to the moon? Or does something else take over? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section and the live chat below. The notes will pay interest every 6 months, like we said. The rate of interest and conversion rate will be set during the pricing process, the Fort Lauderdale, Florida-based miner said in a statement. The company already holds more Bitcoin than its peers, with a stash of more than 20,800, valued at $1.2 billion US dollars at the current price, according to BitcoinTreasuries.com. That's more than double the next biggest Hut 8. Marathon sold 51% of its Bitcoin it mined in the second quarter to fund its operating costs. However, it recently announced that it bought $100 million worth of Bitcoin in the open market and readopted the strategy to fully hold all Bitcoin in its balance sheet. The company's shares fell 3.2% in pre-market trading. Now, if you're going to ask me, As far as investing in mining companies in general, I've gone to consensus here recently, listened to all of these people talk. I listened to HUD 8 talk. I listened to Fred Teal talk. As you know, from Marathon, all of these guys, what I found extremely interesting was the vast difference in strategies between a lot of these companies. And HUD 8's kind of moving into that AI data center kind of motion. And I think AI by and large is kind of a false flag, for lack of I guess not a false flag. It's a disguise for cryptocurrency mining. I think at the end of the day is how I would put it. I think that um, what HUD 8 is doing is, I think they genuinely believe that AI is going to go somewhere, but I think that's from all of the hype surrounding it. I would actually think that AI is more of a bubble from a hardware perspective than cryptocurrency is from a hardware perspective. And the reasoning behind that is because AI models are going to become more and more efficient over time, just by nature of the way programming works, etc. And I think that there'll be less and less need for hardware, especially as, of course, hardware also improves in efficiency and power. And what that means is that you have two competing different models, right? On the AI side of things, you're really going for more and more efficiency and progress over time to using and utilizing less and less hardware. Where on the Bitcoin mining side of things, regardless of how more efficient the equipment gets, the requirement for more hardware will always be there, which means it's always on a upward tick of utilizing more power. And so if you're really in the strategy of mining, I think you should avoid the idea of AI from a hardware perspective and maybe capitalize on it, like I said, to make some supplemental income here and there in between mining. Sure, we could go down that route. But the more and more I look at these industries, the way they fundamentally operate differently, and if we actually get into even that, right, on the AI side of things, you're going to have things like redundancy that's required. You're going to have cooling that's going to be a lot more important. You're going to have internet bandwidth that needs to be a lot higher, where on the Bitcoin mining side, it's really how much power can you get into it and a little bit of cooling, and that's pretty much it. So there's not as many requirements from a mining farm as there is to an AI data center, and the cost to stand up an AI data center compared to mining is going to be a lot more per watt. And so I think when you're really focused on these strategies and when I listen to them talk, I think Marathon Digital gets this. And when I listen to them talk at Consensus, they definitely understand it. HUD 8 doesn't understand this. And so HUD 8, I think, is actually going the wrong direction. And I think that's important to note if you are interested in, of course, investing in Bitcoin mining uh, options like this, right? Stocks, whatever it may be. And I am still against that in general because I think you might as well just buy Bitcoin, because really at the end of the day, if you're buying a stock in a Bitcoin mining company, you're still kind of buying into the volatility of the Bitcoin market. And that's kind of was proven out on this last cycle, right? It's not like these companies survived very well. They kind of still went through the same dips, the same sort of losses. And you have basically more buy and sell restrictions. So, I'm not a big fan of it. I know some people are. Maybe as these companies kind of adapt to the cryptocurrency markets, some will get better at it and protect your investment more in it. That is a potential there. I'm not really sure. If I was going to invest in any of them, I kind of agree with Marathon Digital's roadmap more than the others right now, right? That's kind of where I'm at with it. Bitcoin miner with Celsius Assets delays IPO after losing CEO and auditor. Ionic Digital's former accountant, RSM, is no longer auditing publicly traded digital asset mining companies. Updated throughout the note that, wait, let's see. Let's go ahead. This was an update. Updated throughout to note that RSM said it is no longer auditing publicly traded miners. So I think that's everybody, in contrast to Iconic's claim that the firm ceased auditing the entire cryptocurrency sector. So just not publicly traded miners. That's all they're not monitoring anymore as far as their auditor goes. Ionic Digital, the Bitcoin miner that bought bankrupt crypto lender Celsius's mining assets, has delayed a plan to go public after losing its CEO and auditor. Former CEO Matt Prusak told the company in July he won't stay for or on after the end of his employment term on August 14th, the miner said in a statement Thursday. Ionic has started searching for a new CEO and named its recently hired CFO, John Penver, the interim boss. Penver was hired in July to shepherd the company's plan to go public. Ionic said that despite the leadership change, it still intends to do an initial public offering and is confident that Penver will be able to lead the company to that goal. How long it will take is another matter. Ionic also said its auditor, RSM US, severed ties with the miner, citing a strategic decision by the accounting firm to, quote, disengage from all audit engagements with companies in the cryptocurrency mining sector, as we saw in the note above. However, RSM told Coindesk that it will no longer audit publicly traded digital asset mining companies. We covered that. The auditor will still offer its services to privately held crypto-related firms, a spokesperson said. They say it wasn't due to any disagreements with the company in particular, and Ionic came out of stealth earlier this year. At the time, the miner said it would acquire all of Celsius's mining assets as part of the bankrupt lender's emergence from Chapter 11, and that it would go public within 12 months. The temporary absence of an auditor has prevented the company from being able to update its SEC filings, which in turn has delayed Ionix Digital's efforts to become a public reporting company, the statement added, without giving a revised timeline. So apparently not within that 12-month period, though, is what we could assume. News of the delay comes at a time when the mining landscape has become more competitive after the recent Bitcoin halving, which cut the block rewards paid regularly to miners by half. The availability of spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds have also deterred many investors from the mining industry, shutting some doors to capital for miners. This has put pressure on some companies trying to take their firms public. Most recently, Bitcoin financial services firm Swan Bitcoin, which planned to go public, canceled its IPO, discontinued its hosted mining business, and cut staff across several units, citing reduced revenues. Now, a little bit of insider information or pseudo insider information, as far as I'm aware. A lot of the cutting or discontinuing of hosted mining businesses is in an attempt to basically capitalize on the fact that they utilized clients for capital to build out the infrastructure to mine for themselves. And now that we have new updated hardware coming from Bitcoin at pretty reasonable prices for miners themselves, the plan is for a lot of these companies to utilize the previously hosted facilities for their own Bitcoin mining production. And this is a strategy that ultimately gets applied across, I think all hosting companies is something to pay attention to as you're signing, of course, any sort of hosting agreements with any companies, period. Obviously keep that in mind. You want to get a very long contract at a very good rate if possible, but keep in mind that if you're going for a short contract, it's like 6 months to a year, they could just be utilizing you for startup capital and then ditch out on you and make you take your miner back and not host you once the bull run hits. And then boom, you're done. They have the infrastructure. You have a miner you can't power on. And too bad, so sad. This is a problem with a lot of the hosting facilities. And from insider information of people I talked to at Consensus, is the business strategy. So be aware that this is the business strategy that hosting companies are implementing. So be very careful when picking and choosing hosting companies. Okay. Now, Nvidia and MediaTek AI PC chip expected to launch by H1, or I guess the first half of 2025, targeting Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm SoCs. So unfortunately, this isn't necessarily like a CPU necessarily as it was kind of advertised as, which is the biggest correction that I think needs to be made here. It's more along the lines of an SoC. which, Qualcomm's in the race there, not just Intel and AMD. And it's not going to necessarily be a high performance CPU that, gamers would be looking for here. This is definitely aimed towards, I think, going to be aimed towards, basically the AI enthusiast market specifically, and it should be coming out in 2025. There are rumors surrounding a custom chip being made by MediaTek for the AI PC markets, and that's been swirling for quite some time now. And the hype massively increased when it reported on Nvidia joining the development process. We did expect some showcase back at Computex 2024, given that Nvidia CEO Jensen was a little too much attached to Taiwanese firms, with MediaTek being at the forefront. However, a new report claims that MediaTek's upcoming AI PC SoC is set to debut next year, coming head to head with Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite lineup. In terms of how capable MediaTek's new AI PC SoC is going to be, it is said that the chip will employ TSMC's 3 nanometer process based upon the ARM architecture. And with NVIDIA on board, it's safe to say that we will witness some a revolution with the integrated graphics domain. Since MediaTek is an expert in developing power efficient mobile chips such as Dimensity 9400, the Taiwanese firm won't find it difficult to squeeze out a chip for the AI PC segment. That not only provides optimal performance, but decent efficiency figures as well. It is reported that the chip is currently in its design phase, with verification and sampling expected to be held by the next quarter, ultimately making the 2025 launch timeline imminent in this case. Interestingly, NVIDIA and MediaTek have kept quite silent around the AI PC chip, so it's likely going to be an unexpected launch, one which could turn the dynamics of the market given how Intel and AMD are both slacking in their respective domains. MediaTek can capitalize on this opportunity, providing an unavoidable option. The AI PC markets are expected to grow massively within the upcoming years, given that with the generative AI hype, every manufacturer is rushing towards integrating the technology capabilities into its product lineup. So it's safe to say that there's optimism for NVIDIA's MediaTek's chip, but we'll have to wait and see how the plot unfolds. Now, with any new SoC coming out, it would be interesting to talk about, of course, projects like Coin and some of the others around there that utilize, Raspberry Pis and cell phones to mine cryptocurrency. And with options like this coming out, it could be an interesting sector to get into. I would be curious to see what these do on something like Varus Hash and so on, and could be a really, really interesting thing to implement into maybe Warthog, because you would have that capability of having some sort of SoC that has GPU and CPU capability built into it at the same time. These are kind of the directions I think are really interesting to push into for cryptocurrency mining in particular, which is consumer grade devices that, are both powerful, multi-purpose, consumer available, and basically enhanced decentralization. I think when we talk about the mining sector in general, it's been an economy of scale, even on the GPU side of things, not near as much on the GPU side of things, but definitely still a problem on GPU. I think the CPU side really has crypto jacking to deal with, which hurts the competition, I think, from a competitive standpoint. And then, of course, ASICs have the problem of very few manufacturers, creating, of course, this uneven playing field for general consumers to participate within networks, thereby, of course, decreasing the capabilities of decentralization of these networks. And there are projects that are working on ways to get around this. I think, devices like this could be very interesting if you implemented them into your um, hashing algorithm. And then I think like some projects like Warthog that are kind of pushing towards the one GPU to one CPU method or is definitely really interesting, especially when you talk about the amount of interest in cryptocurrency mining that I saw growing within places like QuakeCon, which that video should be coming out this week. I went around QuakeCon and asked people what they thought about cryptocurrency mining, and all of that. And I think a lot of the problem now with cryptocurrency mining is that it just feels so hard to compete in, that there's no real room for the whole miner. And if we can have good, valid projects that are going to fight back against that, I think ASIC resistance is really important when we discuss that. I think that when we talk about decentralization, even from the GPU side of things, we can't act like there's not centralization issues there as well. And there's going to have to be things done on the project side of things, on the development side of things, to really force decentralization more and more towards the one CPU to one vote method. And that's my belief behind all of it. I think everybody should be able to participate, and not just participate in like little minute ways, but be able to grow their participation over time if they're so willing to do so, and I think that it's a hard problem with economies of scale. And I don't know if we'll ever figure it out, but it's something that I think is we're getting closer and closer to working towards. Nvidia AI Blackwell chip is facing delays, though. I don't know that it's necessarily due to their AI market, but it says it's currently under investigation for potential AI market abuse. According to the information, this isn't the only issue for the tech giant, as its Blackwell chips are now facing a slight delay due to a design flaw, it is claimed. So they're under investigation on AI market abuse. They're under investigation, or they're under a lawsuit, of course, for the manipulation or the downplaying of, crypto's influence. Nvidia, as they grow, are going to get obviously be in more lawsuits, be looked at, under a microscope, I think, as a whole. And I think it's fair to say that, um, a lot of lawmakers and so on are going to get exposed here as well, such as the Nancy Pelosi's, who capitalized off of the Nvidia market as well. I think that hopefully we see, people start being held accountable for these kind of dirty moves that they play. Eventually, I hope that gets all the way down to the ASIC market, but we'll have to see if that happens. NVIDIA has not confirmed a release date for Blackwell, stating only that it has started sampling units to customers. However, the information reports that NVIDIA has informed Microsoft, one of its major customers, about the delay. The issue appears to be a design flaw, which requires the chip to be fixed, validated, and put into production once again. What's perhaps even more important is the larger shipments of Blackwell chips are not expected before the first quarter of 2025. Just as Nvidia is expected to launch the gaming variant of Blackwell, Nvidia Corporation's upcoming artificial intelligence chips will be delayed due to design flaws. The information reports, citing two unidentified people who helped produce the chip and its server hardware. The chips may be delayed by 3 months or more, which could affect NVIDIA's customers, including Meta Platforms, Google LLC, and Microsoft Corporation. What's really interesting is this timing is going to actually hit at a really bad time if the halving cycle plays out still the same. Because now, as opposed to early 2025, we'll be looking at the end of 2025, which would be near the bull run. And if we might see basically a repeat of the 30 series here, it might be well advised that if you are looking at getting into GPU mining for the next bull run, waiting on the 50 series might not be the play there. And that's just something, as an individual, I'm looking at. That's not financial advice. I'm just thinking, this is looking eerily similar to the same timing and GPU shortages that we saw with the 30 series. And while history doesn't always repeat, it does rhyme. And we have this whole AI thing coming into play as well. We're already starting to see shortages of the 6600 in China, which is going to start happening here in the US soon as they stop production for the 6600 on the AMD side of things. We're seeing delays from Nvidia on the 50 series. And we are seeing, of course, a potential prepping for another bull run at the same exact time that we'll see launches for the 50 series. Look, if you've been like, I'm not building right now, it's not worth it, and then you see the price start to pump and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait for 50 series," you might not get any GPUs, but, too bad, so sad, you missed the boat again. And that's just the way it's going to be. So keep in mind that this is really a big potential problem for GPU mining coming up here. So information about NVIDIA's situation comes from those individuals like we discussed. And according to Data Center Dynamics, NVIDIA is expected to ship over 60,000 GB200 NVL36 units. Each of these supercomputers contain 36 GB200 chips paired with 18 Grace CPUs, and it's priced at 1.8 million per unit. The larger GB200 NVL72 unit is said to cost $3 million. Nvidia is also offering individual GPUs as B100, which may cost between 30,000 and 35,000 per unit, with the GP200 super chips priced at 60,000 to 70,000 each. And I don't think any of those will necessarily be utilized for mining, but it could be. And here's the thing, if these end up being extremely good at mining with HBM3, and you have essentially AI data centers renting out their hash rate and then looking at monetizing in between running AI models, the GPU mining market might be dead as well. And by that, I mean, we're going to see large fluctuations of hash rates coming onto the network and coming off as AI models finish training. We'll see hash rate come onto the network, and as they come back on, we'll see them drop off. This is going to be, I think, potential disaster for a lot of GPU mineable coins that do not have difficulty smoothing enabled, as well as potential disaster for home miners on GPUs, as you will basically just be fighting with these big boys. It'll be the equivalent of on the CPU side, fighting with the crypto jackers, except it's going to be at a corporate scale. So just amplify that 1,000%. So if you're looking for a reason to get out of GPU mining, then this could be the red flag for you as well. I mean, if I had to guess how these companies are going to structure their AI data centers, cryptocurrency mining is going to be a part of it to supplement income when models are not being trained, especially if we see a bull run at the exact same time. Now, a little bit of fun. Are you frustrated with GPU availability in the past? Have you been? Have you ever wished you could build your own GPU? Well, someone's actually done it. It's called the Fury GPU here. It's actually built off of the RDZ7 and Eater's 8-bit breadboard computer. And this is essentially going to be an FPGA. If you see here, it's off of the Zinc Ultra Scale Plus FPGAs with DSP units and massive amount of LETs and FFs. So this guy essentially built his own GPU. The project's called at furygpu.com. He has Doom running on it. He's been writing his own APIs. He's eventually going to integrate it with DirectX as well. And I think this is a really interesting project to pay attention to. Of course, FPGA availability is not much better than ASIC chip availability. And if you have FPGAs, there's probably more profitable things to mine than what you could mine with a GPU version of that FPGA. But I'm always excited about projects like these, so I wanted to share it with you guys. This guy has been developing it for 4 years and has developed a custom full stack GPU in his spare time. And basically, it looks like this. He even kind of marked it with the Fury GPU. His name is Dylan, and it's a super interesting project. He has videos of it running Doom at 60 frames per second, which is pretty cool as well. And he said designing the schematic for and laying out a PCIe graphics card, even with much of the FPGA circuitry built into the SOM, was a Herculean effort. However, he already spent several years on the project, so why not? After several months of work laying out the board in KiCad and fixing all the issues, he found as soon as JLC PCB delivered each revision, he finally had a board with a powerful FPGA DisplayPort and HDMI output and a 4-lane PCIe connector that could plug into his test rig and write drivers for. Of all the parts for this project, writing Windows drivers for it have been the most painful. Eventually, he got everything working and he wrote a custom graphics API to communicate with the GPU, wrote Windows kernel drivers for the display and audio, and now he has a fully functional piece of graphics hardware that can render Quake at a solid 60 frames per second. It's super duper cool. So I wanted to share this with you guys. I would definitely pay attention to it as well, because this could be a route that people do start taking, I think, in the future, even on the GPU mining side of things. If there are shortages and there is a GPU mineable coin that could leverage this type of thing, you never know. You never know. Will it happen? Probably not. But what this could also do, which I think is more important, is it could influence other individuals to all of a sudden discover that they can create a company that can be competitive within the GPU market. And I think we need more competition in the GPU market, both from the gaming side of things as well as from the mining side of things. And anything that's going to decentralize, all of these powers that be more and more is a win in my book. So I think once people kind of start to realize that a lot of these processes aren't necessarily as difficult as they have been in the past, they'll start getting into it. We have a lot more tools available to the public these days to start large projects like this, and I don't think that all of it has to necessarily be locked behind, this basically corporate oligopolies that we have going in the tech industry right now, especially on the hardware side of things. So something to pay attention to, things I nerd out about. I wanted to share that with you guys. The X3D processors have been fantastic for gaming, not so great for mining, except in some specific use cases. I think all around, they're not like going to be something you go out and purchase. I think with the latest vulnerabilities in the AM4 platform from AMD, um, not patching for the 3000 Ryzen chips, you'll possibly see still from the mining perspective, like the 3900 XT or the 3900X, excuse me, being the most advantageous for mining projects, right? And the thought behind this is this: they're not patching a ring 0 uh, vulnerability in the 3000 series, which means a lot of people will be getting rid of those because they don't want to fight with the security or worry about the security. But if you're utilizing it for mining, you usually just, don't have anything like personal information or anything on there. You're just hashing away, pointing to a separate address that has no keys on that miner in particular. And so it's probably from the, rapid mining side of things, the CPU miners, the 3900 XT is probably going to come down, probably see a lot of them go on sale on, eBay and all of that, since they aren't getting patched. I think that's still going to be the best way to go, other than, unless we see massive performance efficiency, specifically improvements on the 9000 series side of things that makes it worth paying that extra premium. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, compared to the price drop in 3000 series coming down the pipeline, I doubt it. I doubt it. But let me know what you think in the comment section in the live chat. Do you think the 3000 series is really going to still be the best bet moving forward for mining, or do you think people will try to go to the 9000 series for, of course, the efficiency benefits? But in this one in particular, we have a 5500 X3D, which is going to be a 6-core processor, and not even the lowest SKU that will feature the 3D V cache. AMD is now said to be working on a new version called the Ryzen 5 5500 X3D. which, as the name suggests, would feature 6 cores. Economics may have played the biggest role in AMD's slow introduction of 3D V-cache with the budget segment. The X3D series was never among the cheapest SKUs at launch, but given that the first 3D V-cache SKU, the 5800X3D, came out 2 years ago, there's likely some stock of processors that would not qualify for an already available model. It's worth noting that AMD already has 3 models: the 8 core 5800X3D, the 5700X3D, and the 6 core 5600X3D. The fourth model would feature 6 cores if the naming convention is maintained, but this hasn't always been the case, as shown by the recent launch of the 5900XT, expected to have 12 cores, but instead featuring 16, which was actually pretty incredible. I still need to pick that one up for testing because I think that one's going to be really interesting. But what we do know about it is it turns out this part was mentioned a long time ago in November of 2023, and it would make it 300 to 400 megahertz slower than the 5600X3D, which could probably be, if you want to get the benefits of 3D cache, for the mining side of things, where you maybe don't need those high single core numbers, this would probably be a buy over the 5600X3D. Um, Depending on the games you wanna play, I still think, like, a lot of games benefit a lot from a higher single threaded clock, and so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, for a budget system, I think it's gonna be amazing, as far as all that's concerned. The X3D series has really been kind of a game changer for budget gaming rigs, across the board, and really, I think if you are developing a CPU mineable hashing algorithm right now, you should learn to leverage the 3D cache, because I think at the end of the day, it's going to have a very wide adoption rate in gaming PCs. And if you want to target decentralization, target individuals that already have these chips in their systems, aiming towards that, I think would be extremely beneficial and help you decentralize your project even more. Just my 2 cents as far as that goes. Now, the 4070 has a shortage of GDDR6X, unfortunately. I had kind of alluded to the fact that they're kind of ramping down the production of GDDR6X in favor of GDDR7 manufacturing, but there is still a lot of GDDR6 left over, apparently, because there is going to be a 4070 GDDR6 edition available. Now, this is going to be really interesting because we only saw the 4070 release about 16 months ago. I think it's been, from my experience, pretty good, except but then we saw the 4060 Super come out, or the 4070 Super, then you had the 4070 Super Ti. They're kind of like squishing all of these things together. In my testing so far, I think like what was the last one I had up? The 4070 Ti, or yeah, the 4070 Ti Super seems to be a little bit more efficient in mining. I am working on all these numbers. But I have been debating going back to testing just all the AMD cards first, because there's not a lot of information for people on mining with the 7000 series yet. And I don't know. I'm trying to get the time to do it, just due to illness and such. I get, and day job, I don't have as much energy as I used to, where I would stay up till 2 a.m. every night. Just getting old, boys. I'm just getting old. All right. It just is what it is. But I'm slowly pushing towards that goal of testing all of these GPUs. Probably won't even get them all tested before the 50 series comes out, funny enough. But if you want to ask me questions on that, I all the testing I do is available via Google Doc spreadsheet that is shared out for locals members. So if you're a locals member, you can search for that spreadsheet. If you don't see it there, hit me up. I'll relink and share that spreadsheet. I have all the latest, a bunch of the latest GPUs there available for you to look at as far as what I've tested so far. There's quite a few shocking surprises, I think, especially in the 7000 series for people. Once you start getting under the 7800 kind of realm, then things kind of get interesting. Outside of that, I think, like, obviously you do have issues with developers really still pushing down the Nvidia support side of things. I think that's from a hashing algorithm perspective. The reason that's being done, like, obviously, is like NVIDIA has a larger install base. So from a decentralization perspective, you want to get NVIDIA working before you get AMD working. But I'm an AMD fanboy. So please start developing more for AMD. So this apparently could be available as early as August 20th. If we take a look at the memory bus, we still only get the 192-bit bus that we saw on the GDDR6X version. And the base clock is, though, still going to be at the 1920 megahertz and the same boost clock at 2475. But the memory clock, which is important here, is going to be 1 gigabit per second slower, which is going to take it from that 504 gigabits per second to 480 gigabytes per second, gigabytes per second when we're talking about bandwidth, 480 gigabytes per second, which is, about 24, 25 gigabytes per second slower than the 4070 GDDR6X version. But from a mining perspective, remember the GDDR6 versions of GPUs were a lot more reliable, run cooler, and maintain solid hash rates a little bit better. So losing 20 gigabytes per second, but gaining that reliability could be worth it, especially if we see that price point come in below the $500 price mark of the RTX 4070. So this could be a really interesting mining GPU. Due to the reduction of those clocks as well, we could, or due to the reduction of memory bandwidth, we could see a little bit of a cut in the actual power usage or power consumption here. I'm actually kind of excited about it because, like I said, GDDR6 in the past has functioned a little bit better in mining environments than 6X. Of course, with GDDR7 coming out, I'm really excited about that just from the ultimate raw power perspective. You know what I mean? Now, um, in an interesting play, if you guys remember, this happened a little bit ago. The US government blocked Nvidia from selling RTX 4090s to China, which is actually kind of funny. And so Nvidia made a different line, and this was because they didn't want them to have the power for AI models. So it's a battle over basically who can have the best AI. They're like, no 4090 for China, not allowed to sell them. So NVIDIA's like, okay, well, we'll make the 4090D. So the 4090D comes out, still pretty competitive as far as everything I've looked at from AI training and all of that. And then NVIDIA goes, you know what we're going to do? Let's just double the memory for AI training models on the Chinese models of the RTX 4090D and the 4080 Super. The government moves too slow for technology. That's just really, at the end of the day, that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? So the China-centric RTX 4090D graphics card designed to circumvent US export restrictions on the flagship 8102 gaming GPU is now available with double memory size of 48 gigabytes. This information was first reported by blah, blah, blah Twitter user who accessed a cloud computing platform where these instances were already installed. The primary use of these custom graphics cards is not for crypto mining, but for training large language models and other generative AI models, which require significant computational power and memory capacity. As you can see here, you have the 4080 Super showing actually 32 gigabytes of memory. And then down here in the leak, we see 4090D with 48 gigabytes of memory. So although the original tweet doesn't include a photograph or physical evidence, it confirms that the 4090D's memory bandwidth at 937 gigabytes per second, consistent with GDDR6X memory specs. The 48 gigabyte memory capacity is available with the 8102 GPU, typically seen in the RTX 80A workstation series, but uses the GDDR6X standard, or 6 standard, excuse me. This suggests that the 48 gigabyte RTX 4090D has faster memory. So they've completely bypassed this whole sanction. Like, all the way. Because by doing this, they apparently also upgraded from GDDR6 to GDDR6X, which is obviously what you want in these cases. And faster memory is going to help with these AI training models. And I'm not so sure that these sanctions actually did anything to really stop China from basically AI. Memory modifications like these are not uncommon, especially within the modding community and GPU servicing centers where memory replacements are a daily task. However, the fact that a cloud computing platform offers instances of such modified graphics cards suggests a larger scale supply and the use of custom board designs. 4090D typically supports only 12 memory modules, but it is possible to use the PCB from an RTX 3090 Ti, which supports 24 modules, along with the 8102 GPU chip from the 4090D. This solution allows for doubling the memory capacity. In other words, it appears that a company is using a custom 3090 Ti PCB with an 8102 GPU to achieve this upgrade. So, if you guys haven't ever watched people do these types of things where they basically swap out, you know, the sockets for CPUs or the GPUs on PCBs. There's a lot of good YouTube channels. You should look it up. It's actually not near as hard as you think. I've seen crazy cool ones like original Xboxes getting modified with better CPUs. They can run at like 1400 megahertz instead of 740 and ends up running like old Xbox games at much higher frame rates. It's really cool stuff. I watched those. I just watched another one the other day. So I don't know. I shared those over my Twitter at Son of Tech if you want to follow me over there. One. I got a snake in my throat. All right. Let's talk about some solutions. If you are a content creator for cryptocurrency mining and you want to do some testing, there's always been kind of this issue of being able to test real world power draw from the wall. And I think that we've had like a lot of channels that just don't do it properly. What I had always done, of course, is set up risers separately, connect a completely separate power supply, and set all that up. It can be a little bit more difficult than if you just had something kind of out of the box to do it. I provided a solution, of course, that I had done with a little test bench of mine, I think last year. I think that's a really good way to do it. But now we're starting to see some of these really interesting projects come out that are essentially external GPU enclosures that are very customized, that also can include mini PCs as well. Um, and basically allows you to kind of keep all of the components separate, a lot easier for you to do some testing. Now, in this case, it does include, of course, a separate 24 pin here that they are plugging into the power supply, but you could plug this 24 pin into a separate power supply and then just have the GPU running off of this particular PSU. And then that's going to give you the ability to test properly. Now, there is the question of like 220 versus 120 and all of that. You can solve that, of course, with a 220 plug and a PDU that supports these. Most power supplies are going to support anywhere from 120 to 240 out of the box and automatically do it. So you're not going to really run into that issue. And I wanted to bring it up because I know some content creators watch my channel and give you guys something to pay attention to. My option was a lot cheaper. I think on Amazon, I just bought basically an external kit and then I plugged in one of my power supplies and I kind of swapped the power supplies out depending on the power draw of the GPU because a lot of this testing can be quite difficult. So, just to give you an idea, each power supply has efficiency ratings, and then those efficiency ratings are based on load. So, if you have, like, let's say, a GTX or yeah, we'll do something newer. Like let's say you have an RTX 3060 that's drawing under 200 watts, right? Something like that. You don't want to have a power supply that's 1,000 watts because it won't be as efficient. So you're not going to get quite the right numbers. You're going to want to have like a 500 watt power supply or less, right? Like 400, 450, something like that for testing that GPU in particular, because around 50% loads really where you're going to get the efficiency numbers. But in the case of something like an RTX 4090 that can draw up to like 400 watts, you're going to want like an 800 watt PSU for testing that power effectively. So there is a little bit of nuance in all of that as well. And understanding that when you're talking about these GPUs, their power efficiency and all of that, your numbers can be way off by using the wrong power supply, by changing the amount of voltage that's going into it. All of that, it can be, there's not a lot of rigorous testing that I think goes into this industry. And unfortunately, I've been very busy. I'm trying to actually redo my entire setup to make sure that I'm as accurate as possible. It's something I've actually been working on over the past year, which is why I kind of stopped. I was like, I'm going to try to get this as close as possible and a lot better. I did do a couple videos here recently. The 7900 or the 7900 XT, for example, is one that I just did, and the BC 250 that were utilize some of these strategies to get better testing. But this is one that you could do, and that will give you a better idea. And it's really important to test for yourself too. So even if you're a miner, don't always trust everything that's on the internet. Don't go out there and order a bunch of 3070s because Joe Blow ordered a bunch of 3070s and says they're the best for mining. Maybe order one of each GPU, test them all, and see which ones you're getting the best numbers out of, and then go from there. There's also a specific board models that you could like do better with than other board models, whether it's like a brand like Asus or EVGA or whatever it might be. There's a lot of factors that run and play into this. So um, test a little bit more. But this is a pretty cool one. It is only a PCIe 3.0. There's another one coming from B-Link, which has a 4.0 interface, which is going to be a little bit more enticing, especially when we start doing some higher end projects like maybe like Flux or something along those lines. If you're building a Flux node, this could be a really interesting option for that as well. That you might want to take a look into, or if you're building a vast AI rig, maybe this is something you look into as well. I think I would like to use these specifically for like vast AI and core AI honeypots to kind of detect new coins a little bit earlier. That's a strategy I've been implementing a lot lately as well. This one also has USB 4 Thunderbolt and a few other amenities that I think make it a little bit better than the 3.0 option, because you are going to be able to, like I said, do more with it from that perspective. These are really, really cool devices. That I think are something you should check out if you're interested. This one obviously supports everything up to the 7900 XTX, and I believe it does say that it supports the 4090 as well. So that's pretty cool. I don't think this one technically supports those. It would still work. I mean, in the case of testing for mining, 3.0 shouldn't really affect you. But if you really wanted to be like cutting edge and have all the options, the B link would be really interesting. Links down in the description below. All right. So let's talk about XM and some of their new releases. Actually, their release 2 days ago was version 6.22.0. Um, I believe the interesting thing about this one was added support for Yada. So we got to go look at Yada and see what that's about. But the reason this is important is we can kind of always get a little bit of an idea of what's going on in the GPU mining space a little bit earlier if you pay attention to these. So there's no other support here really added. It is important to note that they did remove the Keva algorithm. So that's no longer something you probably want to mine. I doubt any of you were mining it, but just keep that in mind. So what is Yada? Yada's apparently been around since 2009. It's linked down below if you want to check it out. They have a Twitter, Discord, Telegram, Reddit, all that sort of stuff. I'll be doing a WTF is on this later for more details. I just wanted to give you guys the latest and greatest up to date information on what people are kind of mining and developing for. So, this one has a max supply of 21 million with a block time of 10 minutes and an initial block reward of 50. The block reward is split between 90% to miners and 10% to master nodes, which is actually quite the heavy split in favor of miners. Um, Much better than what we have seen in the past from more recent projects. And so, I think it is in favor of the miners. I think that's a better way to distribute. I think the master node portion of that is to, decrease potential, I think, with any kind of 51% attacks early on. I know that is some reasons why people do it. Now, when I say 2009, you go like, what do you mean? Well, this has not been a cryptocurrency project until I believe 2017. So the protocol for Yada, which was supposed to be a metaverse and payment protocol, started in 2009 and the patent was filed in 2010. And they started collaborating and developing on the Metaverse protocol in 2011, with 2017 basically starting their crypto inception. Now, what's really interesting is this has been around a long time, but we haven't seen these algorithms added here most recently, which means, well, heck, what happened? It's kind of cool that it's here. They do have their own miner, I believe, as well. We can go over all of that in their other stuff later on down the line. It is available on exchanges though, so this isn't a spec mine by any stretch of the imagination. They're listed on ZegX. I believe I had this pulled up, but I guess I'll have to pull it up for you guys again. Here it is right here, currently at 2.7%. Roll out. See when it got listed. Maybe in July of this year. So it recently got listed, and it actually has a pretty favorable chart, I guess, surprisingly, for a newer project as well. Most of these don't look like this. Maybe I got to zoom out further, but the chart looks pretty good as far as that's concerned. And we'll have to go over, of course, everything from there. Oh, was it a fair launch? All that sort of stuff in the WTF is, but I wanted to bring the project to your attention so you can essentially do all the research yourself if you want to get started early on it. You can definitely do that. There's how to set up master nodes on here, how to create wallets, join pools, solo mine, all of that. Any of these particular guides and so on, I'll probably replicate over on sonofatech.locals.com if you are interested. And I believe it has OpenCL support, so GPU mineable. They have docs on how to set it up in HiveOS as well. That's not the only new release that we got this past week. We also had SRB Miner version 2.6.1. And the real interesting thing here was a ProgPal algorithm added for Telest AI. Now, this one would be more along the lines of a speculative mine, as there's no live markets yet that I saw. It's mineable on AMD, Nvidia, and Intel. Of course, the ProgPal algorithm is going to be as close to Ravencoin as you could get, maybe with some modifications. I'm not so clear on that. It was interesting that they also have algorithm aliases as well, so you can. Uh, I think this is. I think this is to hide what you're mining, which is kind of funny that they added that. I need to look into that later because that's pretty fun. They have a very basic website, but don't forget, Caspa had a very basic website too. So don't you look down on it, because all you guys that looked down on it when it had that bad website going for it, and I was like, you should be mining it now, and it wasn't listed on anything, and none of y'all listened. Well, you know what happened. So, Telest AI here has their white paper up here. So it goes into some pretty, I think, go read this. This is going to have to be read on, essentially, in my humble opinion, this is not gonna make the YouTube cut today, which is going to line us up right in time to talk about politics, because this one has basically a damn manifesto, shoved into it with a quote from Plato at the top of the white paper. So, we're going to have to do that. We're gonna have to move on to it. So, let's go ahead and move on over to Rumble. If you're viewing currently on Twitch or YouTube, you can check out the Rumble over here. Let me get it out for you guys real quick. I'll get the link for you. Give me 1 second. Give me one. Talk about politics. Interested in politics, or you are easily offended, please do not come over to Rumble. I don't need any pansies over in Rumble today. Offended, well, go be offended in your bedroom by yourself with no stream, okay? Alright? That's how I feel, and I just don't need it, and you don't need it. Nobody needs it. It's the way it is, okay? We're gonna be talking over there about Trump, Kamala Harris, Russia, and the Telus AI manifesto. Thanks for watching over here on YouTube today. I hope you found the information helpful, helps you in your journey with cryptocurrency mining. Don't forget to hit the like, comment, subscribe, and notification bells down below. Check me out on sonofatech.locals.com if you want to support me as a creator. You can also check me out over on Rumble via the link that I just posted in chat. I love you guys. No hard feelings if you don't head on over to Rumble. I'm not worried about it. I'll see you next Tuesday. For everybody else, let's go ahead and hop into Rumble. If I can remember how to do this. 1 second. Here we go. So we're moving on over to Rumble.